Coming up on FRC Recap, the largest first event of the year, the Texas Cup, took place last week in San Antonio, Texas, with 70 FRC teams over 2 divisions. We'll break down the event, including match recaps, analysis, play-by-play, and more. Stay tuned.
Giving you a voice.
Making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun.
We would like to thank our friends at Stryker for supporting fun so we can continue to make content for you. Stryker is a leading medical device company and is looking for those in FIRST to join their team as interns or for a great career. Come join a company that will actively support you being in FIRST at careers.stryker.com. You can also directly support Fun by joining Fun Nation. Click the join button, and just for a few bucks a month, you'll unlock special perks and directly support us so we can keep making great content. If you're on an FRC or FTC team and you're currently meeting safely in person and have a functional robot, we'd love to have you on our Behind the Bots or Behind the Bumper segments. Go ahead and reach out to us on any of our social channels, on Discord, or send us an email at admin@firstupdatesnow.com, and let's get your team scheduled to be on First Updates Now.
This past weekend, we were down in San Antonio for the first official, and I say that loosely, FRC event since last March when COVID shut down all of the remaining 2020 events. The Texas Cup was a combined UIL event and state championship and was played out in the Alamo Dome, a retired football stadium in San Antonio. It housed 6 FTC teams, 2 FRC fields, and over 100 combined FRC and FTC pits on the dome floor. Both FRC divisions were competing for state championship rights via Texas UIL, an annual athletic, musical, and academic contest for public primary and secondary schools in the state of Texas. If any of you tuned into the live stream, you saw a massive trophy for all the teams that we're playing for. Today, we'll be discussing the 2 FRC division gameplay, Bluebonnet and Lone Star, as well as the round robin and final matches that occurred after division semifinals. But before we get into it, I want to discuss some basics about the tournament. Let's intro some of our team here with us today. I'm Michael Ray from First Updates Now.
I'm Raheel Rahmatullah from FRC 5417.
And I'm Zach Tyler from First Updates Now.
All right, well, Raheel, why don't you start us off and just comment on some of the things that you saw during the tournament?
Yeah, so the tournament was like after a year. My last tournament was Greenville 2020. So that was March 1st, basically. So it was a normal, smaller district tournament, just in a normal high school gym, at the Greenville High School gym. So coming to this was kind of mind-blowing, just seeing how enormous it was, especially seeing the 2 fields. That it immediately reminds you of like that champs feeling of, oh crap, this is like getting really big. And there's going to be some levels of infinite recharge play that haven't happened yet that we're about to see like be born.
Yeah, regarding the dome, it's kind of funny you say that, because in my notes here I said that there was some world championship vibes when you walked into that event. Just I played in 2010 in Atlanta when it was the Georgia Dome, and so playing in the Alamo Dome had that same vibe of having like that big atmosphere in a dome with multiple fields. Super cool feeling, especially since we hadn't played robots in 2 years. So this was that first event, and we came back strong. Zach, anything from you?
I thought it was just really great. Although I wasn't able to attend in person, it was really great just to have some great robotics competition going on. For us who couldn't attend to view, I thought the production value was fantastic and that they did a wonderful job all around showing and showcasing the different robots and the different teams. And it was just great to see some high-level play after all this time.
Yeah, okay, so you watched the event entirely from home. How did you feel this event was in terms of production value compared to some of the other tournaments we had seen?
I would say the production value for this event was honestly rivaled that of Champions. It was a match in-depth discussion between the different matches, especially as playoffs went along. And during round robin, it was fantastic. First, not only the format for how they did it, but for how they handled the different teams and keeping up with the different matches and everything was done very well and was a great experience to watch at home.
So Raheel, you were here in the event with me. How did you what was your experience with the broadcast? I know for those of you who are actually there, you could hear the commentators actually, their audio was piped into the venue, which I thought was pretty cool. Raheel, what did you think about that?
I thought it was really nice, especially going between the pits and the stands. It was kind of harder to hear it in the pits, but once you're like watching from the stands, you felt like you were watching the biggest Twitch stream you've ever seen with the robots right in front of you too. And I also wanted to comment on top of the commentary, the people running the show between the two fields. It was just going back and forth faster than I would have expected it to. Like it was just completely seamless going from field to field.
Yeah, on that note, like it was a little overwhelming per se because, especially since we haven't done this in a while. For me, this was the first game that I had participated, or sorry, the first Infinite Recharge game. We didn't get to play in 2020. Our event was week 3, so by the time COVID shut things down, we weren't able to play. So this was my first time seeing the field, and it was pretty cool. I mean, that truss is just massive. That combined with the whole Alamo Dome feel of it, yeah, awesome tournament. So let's move on and talk about some of the actual the Lone Star and Blue Bonnet divisions that occurred this last week. Raheel, why don't you start us off with the Lone Star division?
All right, so the Lone Star division of the Texas Cup was full of very heavy competition and new strategic takes that we weren't able to see play out in 2020, like we mentioned earlier. We had Houston powerhouses like the Robonauts, Kryptonite, Spectrum, and Texas Torque, as well as some heavy North Texas teams like 2714 Barbecue and 148 the Robo Wranglers. This division was going to be very difficult for everybody involved. And as the Texas Cup was technically an off-season, a lot of teams brought 2 robots to competition. Of note was 9986, which was the Everybot, the one that the Robonauts built, that all the other Robonauts, or all the other Everybots that were even at the competition were based on. And we also had 8515 Photon, which was Spectrum's take on a swerve-based infinite recharge robot, as well as 9890, or Texas Torque's other robot that they had 2 of. One was competing on the Lone Star field and one on the Blue Bonnet field. So after about 34 teams competed over the course of 68 qualification rounds, the top 8 teams were unsurprisingly going to be filled up by those powerhouse teams. We had 2714, 3847, and 624 taking up the top 3, with the rest of the top 8 being 5892 Energy Heroes, 5411, 5431 Titans, 1296 Full Metal Jackets, and 9986 the Robonauts Everybot. Alliance selection proved as important as ever, with the top 2 alliances being headed by 2714 Barbecue, who picked 624 Kryptonite, and for the second pick, they had 5417 Eagle Robotics. And then for the second alliance, they were headed by 3847 Spectrum, with the unsurprising first pick of 148 and second pick of the other Spectrum bot, 8515. Also known as Photon and Spectrum Jr., as the commentators like to affectionately call it. Alliance selection saw teams digging pretty deep within the top, and that ended up with the 13th seeded team on the field, 5242, being the 8th place Alliance captains at the end of it. So the playoffs at the Lone Star field were pretty eventful. So there's really only one upset in the quarterfinals, where Alliance 5, led by 1296, 231, and 8573, just barely edged out Alliance 4, which was 5411, 5431, and 9890, which they were able to do with consistent power cell scoring and some triple climbs at the end. On top of that, semifinals also saw some very interesting wins and upsets. One of which was the semifinal 2, where Alliance 3, led by 5892 Energy Heroes, alongside 9986 and 457, 2 incredibly well-driven Everybots, managed to outscore both 148 and 3847, as well as their second bot, 8515. It's one of the most interesting matches at the event, in my opinion, because it showed such a high level of play where you didn't need 2 high-scoring port shooting bots to win a round. You could do it with 2 Everybots and 1 high-scoring robot. So hopefully we'll be able to go over that one later on. And that semifinal match was also a really good foreshadowing for actually how the round robin was going to end up going, because of those sort of interesting strategic takes that an alliance with 2 Everybots would have to do in order to, upset some rounds. Later on the other side of the semifinals, we got to see Alliance 1 take on Alliance 5. This was a significant round, as it provided the chance for Alliance 5 to continue their chain of upsets, as 2714 was actually stuck in the pits due to a drivetrain issue. Instead, what we got was 624 displaying their absolute dominance on the field on Lone Star, managing to keep pace with 231 and 1296 on the other alliance. And Alliance 1 eked out a win with just 2 robots against 3 by 10 points, which allowed the number 1 alliance to move straight to the round robin. So if we want, we can actually cover semifinal 2 because it was just, in my opinion, a very influential match that sort of paved the way that the round robin was going to go. Because I think this match was actually repeated later on because both teams made it to the round robin. So we can go ahead and start that one up, Tyler. And right away in Auton, we're going to have red scoring 8 balls. 148 is going to miss 1 right away. And the blue alliance is only going to get 7 in. So we're going to be down for the count on the blue alliance right out of the way. And as soon as we get to, we can just keep going after Auton. At around 128 seconds, you'll notice 2 different things. 457 is just dumping their preload. You can pause right there. And 8515 is running straight into defense. So on the Lone Star field, 8515 was actually having a lot of trouble keeping up with power cells and just being a consistent shooter. But their swerve drivetrain allowed them to play some very heavy, what I call counter defense. So they are always protecting what the announcers called Papa Spectrum. So making sure that the bigger Spectrum bot could just cycle without having to worry. And 8515 would just keep defending and keep every bots or other robots from getting in their way. So we can keep going. So things kind of play out pretty normally for now. We just see the every bots pretty much cycling. We can actually pause right about here. And you can see 457 looks like they're going to defense, but that's not what they're doing. What they're doing is cleaning up the field, picking up balls that 148 and Spectrum are throwing into the port and have to push out. And they're taking those balls and they're about to do something really interesting. You can keep playing the video now. Once they do a little bit of defense, but once they start cleaning up balls, I think at 96 seconds, we'll get to see it. Almost there. But yeah, you see, and you also saw there 148 missing a bunch of shots. This also played them a lot. So yeah, right at 96 seconds, you see where 457 is going. They're about to dump all the balls they picked up into the trench. And this is something that it feels like a small detail, but it's something that we didn't get to see in the week 1 and week 2, versions of this game. They're going to defend the balls. They're going to funnel all these balls into the middle, and just 5892 is just going to sit at the other end of the trench and not stress about defense anymore, because we've now funneled all the balls into a protected zone. 148 would probably not want to risk getting the penalty points by going for those balls. They're just going to keep going back and forth, and it's not worth the time for Spectrum to go all the way back there. They're going to wait for more balls to roll out or travel to the other side. So we can keep going.
As this is playing, Raheel, we'll talk about this after, but this method we commonly referred to as the poop and scoot on the field. So we'll get into that a little later. You can keep analyzing the match, but
so yeah, I don't think we got to see as much pooping and scooting during the week 1 and week 2, even though we had some high level play from 148 and 118 at the Plano Regional. But being able to see 457 just go back and forth and keep dumping things. And yeah, now you can also see 8515 playing this counter defense. They don't care about actually going to the other side, stopping balls from being scored. They care about getting in the way of this new cycle that we've made on this half of the field. So they're going to get in 457's way. They're going to try and prevent them from pooping those balls into the trench. And we can keep going. So the game mostly plays out like this, where you have the every bot cycling like normal, just making less points. You have Spectrum cycling. You have 8515 counter defending, and 5892 just scoring from the trench for as long as they can. And I think we're about to hit a significant moment where around 44 seconds, the scores are now tied. So both alliances, one with 3 shooters, 2 Spectrum built Einstein level bots, and then a 148 Einstein level bot, tied with 2 every bots and 5892 shooting from the trench. This, I think, should have proved to everyone that the Everybots are a force to be reckoned with from here on out. So you can keep playing. And the interesting thing is on 118's Everybot, they actually put on a color wheel spinner. So they can spin the control panel. And right when we get to endgame, 30 seconds, they're going to spin that wheel and pick up those extra 15 points. And we also know that 2 Everybots will have a consistent climber for the most part. They proved to at this event. And 5892 has also proved themselves to be consistent climbers. So we know that they're going for the triple climb. 148 and 8515 have proved to not be as successful as climbing. And you can see right here, you can pause actually, Tyler. 148 now has to counter with another control panel spinning. They have to make sure that they're keeping up with those 15 points because they don't have time to climb. And 8515 is actually going to drop, which is it's another stroke of luck for the Blue Alliance, but they've played so well that they've sort of set themselves up to be able to capitalize on this. So you can finish up the match here, Tyler. And there we go, get our triple climb. Oh, baby, a triple. As I'm sure many of you on stream heard. So I believe they don't actually get the triple. 5892 is still stuck, but they've gotten the 2 successful climb, and I believe they're balanced. And I don't think we'll have the scores displayed, but I do have the scores here written out. Red ended the match with a score of 161, and Blue ended the match with a score of 169. So it came down to Red was able to score more power cells, but the Everybots were able to just play the game better. They were able to funnel, poop and scoot those balls into the trench. 5892 was able to just sit and score without worrying about defense from 8515. All 8515 was doing was trying to stop the cycles, which they could stop 457 from cycling, but 5892 can still go off on their own and cycle some more balls if they'd like to. So you can, if you have any points, Michael, you can bring them up.
Yeah, I thought that was a great match. I hadn't actually seen the match you picked before we went on air, but I'll talk a little bit about this later in the round robin about how that strategy was so effective. With all the big shooters, the 148s, the 118s, they were trying to do the same thing that the Everybot in that last match was doing, is channeling those balls from the human player station into the trench so that, teams were less likely to go after those balls since it was a little bit more defended. I will say that I told my drivers, and my drivers did without even me knowing half the time, to go for some of those balls. Sometimes it's risky, but if you can get in and out of that trench, you can grab a lot of those balls that were dumped there by those Everybots or some of these tie-in shooting teams. But just overall, that strategy played out by that Everybot alliance was a force to be reckoned with, and
Absolutely.
We'll talk a little bit more about it later in round robin. Anything from you, Zach?
I think something that I'll highlight a little later but this match really showed the importance of mobility in this game. The ability to move around the field quickly and avoid defense, both from the more complex swerve drive teams and just from the Everybots due to good experienced drivers, is really something that's important to this game. I think even more than games in the past.
Yes, that's such a good point.
Really?
Well, we can talk a little bit more about this later. Let's move on to the Blue Bonnet division review at this point. So Zach, go ahead and take it away.
So the Blue Bonnet division was equally full of Texas powerhouse teams. Headlining the division was 3310 Black Hawk Robotics, 118 the Robonauts, 9889 the second robot of the Robo Wranglers, 6800 Viperbots Valor, 1477 Texas Torque, and 2468 Team Appreciate. A couple of standout newer teams were Team 8177 Vector and 7506 Wild Cards. These newer teams showed that they could hang with the big dogs in Texas this weekend. With so much great star power and a deep midfield full of teams with refined robots and strategy, it would be no easy feat to make it out of this division. Qualifying brought a higher level of gameplay than is to be expected with teams having such a long time to update strategy and continue developing their robots. There was a depth of strategy that's not typically seen in qualifying matches, especially in an off-season event. As qualifying went along, the top teams defined themselves with consistent climbs and accurate teleop shooting. However, the upper echelon of teams, such as 3310, 6800, and the Robo Wrangler second robot separated themselves from the rest with high-powered autonomous, leading to large leads early in qualifying matches. The top 8 teams of Bluebonnet were headlined by the number 1 seeded 3310, followed by the Robo Wrangler's second robot, 118, 8177, 7506, and Team Appreciate's second robot. The top 8 was finished out by 5427 and 6800. With a good mix of old and new blood, alliance selection led to 8 fun and interesting alliances, with a few power duos leading the charge. These duos included teams such as 3310 and the second Robo Wrangler's robot in the first alliance, 118 and 6800 on Alliance 2, and both Appreciate teams on Alliance 5. These 8 teams were rounded out by a complement of defensive robots, such as 5866 the Iron Tigers and 4364 Metal Jackets. These defensive robots would go on to prove to be some of the most important parts of these playoff matches. With the unique round-robin format, teams had one goal: be one of the 3 alliances to make it out of the division. Alliances 1 and 2 rolled to a quarterfinals win with their extremely high-powered offenses. The Appreciate Alliance managed to eke out in the 5-4 upset to advance in an absolute slugfest of a quarterfinals matches. The grit and grind continued in the 3 versus 6 matchup, with defense defining this. The young blood of 8177 and Alliance 3 managed victory in the end. These playoff matches in the quarterfinals and then the semifinals really showed 2 different things. You had the high-powered offenses of such as Alliance 1 and 2 versus a bit of just grinding through, getting point after point, playing great defense by some of the other alliances. In the semifinals, as mentioned earlier, mobility was the most important things in these matchups. This was one of the most defining characteristics between the best of the best and their challengers. The ability to combine savvy driving along with a potent combo of swerve drive and a turret gave the top teams such as 3310 and 118 the ability to avoid almost all defense and continue fast cycles. This, combined with fast climbs that allowed these tops robots to continue scoring late into the endgame, led to some extremely high scores in the semifinals. Alliance 1, featuring 3310, Robo Wrangler's second robot, and 5866, along with Alliance 2, consisting of 118, 6800, and 6645, made it out of the semifinals and into the round-robin tournament, while Alliance 3 won a hard-fought sudden death match to send 8177, 2582, and 4737 to the round-robin as well.
We want to give a big shout out to our friends at Stryker for sponsoring this video. Stryker is a leading medical technology manufacturer with a mission to make healthcare better and its focus on meeting the needs of the community in an ever-changing time. Stryker knows that some of the best minds come from FIRST and want to support your career path and your FIRST journey as a mentor or volunteer. Visit careers.stryker.com/FIRST to learn more.
We're going to dive right into an analysis of semifinal 3. So before we start the autonomous period, something I want to note is, as I mentioned earlier, a defining feature of these high-level plays is the complex autos that these teams are able to pull off. Something to pay special attention to is Team 2468, as they've been attempting this auto all throughout playoffs and have not been able to pull it off. So let's roll the clip on the autonomous. So here we see 2468 successfully pulling off an auto, while both teams on red managing to get more extra power cells than what they started with in. It's this accurate shooting that allowed them to go up early. Now, as times go along and these teams start their cycle, something to really take a look at is the difference in defense between the red and the blue alliance. Something that comes about is that the red alliance is successfully able to push the blue alliance robots off of their spots where they want to get to. This sort of picking your spots is something we see common, where teams have a selected spot they want to shoot from. The red defensive robot is really successful in pushing the blue robots off of their spots and disrupting their shots, while the blue defensive robot struggles due to the increased mobility by the 2 red scorers of the Robo Wrangler second robot and 3310. So we can view a bit more of that. Now, the entirety of Red's strategy consists of 3310 running the trench and making long-range shots due to their extremely accurate shooting, with the Robo Wrangler's second robot sort of playing cleanup and in an attempt to just flood out their power cells and cleaning up wherever they needed to. Another important thing here we see is the color wheel being used. Alliance 1 success from the Blue Bonnet field successfully used the color wheel all throughout the playoffs, earning them a great extra amount of points. Now, if you'll notice, Blue Alliance with their shooting, they're getting disrupted, but they're still able to score some power cells. They're keeping up at least decently with Red scoring, but it's about this point of the match that it starts to change. The defense really picks up on the Red side, and they're able to disrupt a good 2 to 3 full cycles of shooting, while the Red Alliance, like Robo Wrangler's second robot here that's just about to shoot, is able to just consistently pump in, as they've now flooded the Blue Alliance, is just able to consistently pump in 5 shots after 5 shots. And this is where the lead really grows for Red Alliance. So these teams continue. And once again, we see that color wheel being used by the Red Alliance. Just a great source of points to continue momentum going. As we're nearing the end game, teams are starting to strategically pick their locations for where they want to climb. Something extremely notable, though, is while Blue gets ready for the end game, some of their robots for that climb really early, due to the speed of the Red team's climb, they're actually able to stay out shooting longer, which this leads to even more points from this high-flyer offense. So you see 22 seconds left. We've got 3310 going to climb, while the Robo Wrangler second robot is still out there, not worried at all about this climb, still pumping shot after shot after shot in. 10 seconds, they finally go to climb, but they're veterans at this. They know what they're doing. And with 5 seconds left, they start their climb, and both get a balanced climb. And it's that difference between mobility and speed that they're able to utilize in order to overcome and really, really spread this matchup to be wider than anyone thought it would be.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Zach, for that analysis. Want to have a short discussion before we move to round robin regarding the dual robots. So both Raheel and Zach, you've talked about having 148's backup bot or 118's backup bot. Zach, start us off. Let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, so we saw these sort of dual robots have quite a bit of success this weekend. One big notable was the pairing of the main robot with a secondary robot that we saw both between Team Appreciate and with Spectrum. And this allowed teams, I think it allowed them to have even better cohesion as they were basically working with themselves on strategy and such. I think for a competition like this, that second robots are good because they help fill out the competition. They help create more high-powered teams and allow different, more of the mid-level teams to be a part of those alliances and get to play further.
Raheel, regarding that, do you think the teams that were able to practice at home with multiple robots had an advantage over some of the other robots just because they're in the same facility, they're practicing, or do you think that really isn't a huge factor?
I feel like there are some parts of it where it's absolutely going to help them figure out how to play better with other robots, because if you're just practicing alone, you're just cycling. It's not going to give you that sort of defensive offensive experience. But I also feel like there might be some scenarios where if you have an every bot and 118's robot playing together, they're not maybe going to understand how to play when there's 2 offensive robots, or if there's 3 every bots against them or something. Like you can't prepare for every scenario, and you might be tunnel visioned into certain ideal scenarios if you only practice with your own robots.
Hey guys, I want to ask a question. What do you think about so teams like, I'm going to give an example. The 148 robot was like their 2020, and then you have the 9889 robot, which is their 2021, and they had their veteran drive team on the 2021 robot and not the main 148 robot. So if you guys had that same choice, how would you kind of go about making decisions like that?
I mean, I can go first because this is actually, since I was competing on the field, we had a second robot, but it wasn't like two of an identical robot. One was effectively just a kitbot drivetrain. But we talked about it on the team, and we said, for us, there's no value in growing the team and making our younger drivers better if our veteran drivers are driving that main robot. We want to sizzle our freshmen up a little bit and get them ready for the pressure that they'd face down the line for a new competition.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We didn't get the chance to run. We only had 7 kids at the end of our season, so we had a robot we could have potentially run. I have no idea as a coach what I would have done with 2 sets of drive teams with 2 robots. It's almost a kid's decision at that point. I know at 2468 they had 4 teams, by the way. Appreciate had I think it was Appreciate and every bot from Appreciate, their backup robot, and then Apprentice's robot. So 4 teams. They broke theirs out by senior, junior, sophomore, freshman, which I thought was also super cool because that gave the freshmen the chance to kind of grow and work together as a team. That gave the seniors one last shot to run their robot that they fought for the last 2 years. They could all kind of group up as together and one last hurrah as seniors to go through that. So I think it depends on what kind of team you're running and what the dynamics are with the students. You can do a whole bunch of different things with more than one robot on the field.
Yeah, and I think it's especially like in the case of Appreciate with these much larger teams that this is the kind of scenario that you want 2 robots in this situation where you can split it up to allow the kids to get more hands-on and more interactive than they would just having one robot. And this is the ideal scenario for that.
Yeah, a little less pressure too with an off season. You can just kind of go out there firing as much as you possibly can without really having that concern of, this is a regional, what are my chances of getting to Worlds if we mess up? There's a little bit more of the pressure's off and you can kind of just gel with your teammates. So I think that's pretty cool.
Just as a side note, by the way, Appreciate has 100 students on their team. So I was talking to Norm at the event, and yeah, they have 100 students. So imagine trying to manage all that at many of which were at that event as well too.
Yeah, I saw in one of the clips we were playing earlier, it was George, who's a mentor on 2468, plus Coach Norm. I mean, just the mentor staff that you also have to support that many students is incredible. And I mean, kudos to 2468 for pulling that off. I barely got through the tournament with one team. I can't imagine, 4. So huge kudos to that. Okay, well, we got to move on in order for us to hit all the rest of our round robin and finals discussions. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the round robin play at Texas Cup. So personally, I think this was one of the coolest parts of the entire week. Not many teams get to play in an actual round robin tournament. Usually that's just reserved for those who make Einstein. So this was a super cool part of the tournament that we were all able to participate in. Now, before we get into match details, let's cover how the round robin and elimination portion of the event actually worked, since it was a little complicated. Both the Lone Star and Bluebonnet divisions sent 8 alliances of 3 to elimination rounds, where they were seeded 1 through 8 like any other tournament. 1 played 8, 2 played 7, etc. in the quarterfinals. Teams that lost their best 2 out of 3 in quarterfinals were eliminated completely from the tournament. The winners were then sent to the semifinals. In semifinals, once again, teams played a best 2 out of 3. The winners of the semifinals locked in their place in the round robin tournament that would be played after lunch last Thursday. The losers of the semifinals then played a single match against the other alliance that lost in the semifinals of their division. The winner of that match locked in a round robin appearance, and the loser was eliminated from the tournament. 3 alliances from Bluebonnet were sent to the round robin. 3 alliances from Lone Star were sent to the round robin. All 6 alliances were then guaranteed 5 matches where they would play every other alliance in the round robin exactly once. This style of play is exactly like how Einstein matches are played at Worlds. And then the top 2 seeded alliances after the 15 matches on the Woody Flowers field, which was where the round robin matches were played, then battle it out in the best of 3 in the grand finals. So let's meet the teams that advanced to the round robin. We talked a little bit about them earlier, but I'm just going to cover them again to make things super crystal clear. From the Bluebonnet field, the number 1 seeded alliance of 3310 Blackhawk Robotics, 148 Backup Bot Robo Wranglers, and 5866 Iron Tigers locked in their position as the strongest looking alliance and expected winners of the event. The number 2 seeded alliance from the Bluebonnet, field was looking down to chase down that number 1 seed and included Alliance Captain 118, the Robonauts, 6800 Viperbots Valor, and 6645 Alloy Obsession. Finally, the number 3 seeded alliance consisted of Captains 8177 Vector, 2582 Panther Bots, and 4734 Iron Plainsmen, which then made it into the dance after losing to 118's alliance in the original semifinal, but winning their best of 1 match against a very strong number 5 alliance consisting of the 2468 robots we talked about earlier. On the Lone Star side, a similar story unfolded of the top 3 alliances making it into round robin. Number 1 seeded alliance consisted of 2714 Barbecue, their captain, 624 Kryptonite, and 5417 Eagle Robotics. Chasing them down would be the number 2 seed of Captain 3847 Spectrum, 148 Robo Wranglers, and 8515 Photon, a Spectrum robot. Finally, the number 3 seeded alliance consisting of Captain 5892 Energy Heroes, 457 Grease Monkeys, and 118 Second Robot, the Everybot, who, like the 3rd seed in Bluebonnet, made it into the dance after losing to the number 2 seed in their original semifinal, but winning their best of 1 match against, once again, the number 5 alliance. This number 3 alliance from Lone Star would be called the Everybot alliance from here on out, as it consisted of 2 Everybots, one of which was the original Everybot from 118. The match we covered earlier was a good example of said alliance. Now, some general notes about the teams in the round robin tournament for Texas Cup. 4 of these teams had Einstein appearances in the 2017, 2018, and 2019 season. 3310, they had 2 Einstein appearances. 148, 2 Einstein appearances, 1 World Championship. 118, 1 Einstein appearance. 3847 Spectrum, 1 Einstein appearance. That's a combined 6 Einstein appearances and 1 World Championship in the 6 Alliance tournament. Not only that, 148 had a backup bot in round robin. 118 had a backup bot in round robin. 3847 had a backup bot in round robin. Needless to say, these 15 matches were probably the most intense and best matches of both the 2020 and 2021 season. My personal opinion, there will not be an off-season event before the 2022 season that will come even close to matching the level of gameplay that these 18 teams had in this round robin event this past week. The very first round robin match had 3310, 148, and 118 all facing off. Just a preview of the 14 other matches to follow. Match 1 was Bluebonnet seeds number 1 versus number 2, featuring 3310, 148 Bluebot, and 5866 getting a world high score of 290 points unpenalized. Now, something to note, if any of you guys were looking at the Blue Alliance or Chief, you may see that 9889 on the list as 3310's alliance partner. This really is the 148 backup bot, the robot everyone commonly referred to as the 1323 Madtown clone. But the thing is, 148's primary drivers in the 2020 season were running this backup bot, and their backup drivers were the ones running the primary bot that was on Lone Star. So again, we talked about this a little bit earlier. It gets confusing, and I apologize. There's a lot of 148s. There's a lot of 118s. We'll get through it. Now, I was on the field and drive coaching for this very first match. I'm the drive coach for 6800, and I can say I was a little disappointed in the match. Not necessarily the end score, because the end score was a world high score, but I expected the match to be a lot closer than it actually was. The game plan was for 118 to match 3310 in trench cycles and 6800 to match 148 row blue Wranglers in fender shots and cleanup. We believe we had the advantage as 148 would have to split from the fender shots at one point to operate the color wheel, whereas 118 was already driving trench runs. So when they needed to spin the color wheel, they were already there. But boy, was I wrong. 3310 and 148 absolutely took off and had a brutal scoring fest. They scored 150 points in power cells and spun both stages of the color wheel. Now, a huge problem with the 118, 6800, and 6645 alliance was that 118's shooter broke during the match, right after Autonomous. Their top roller on their hood had a motor wire that went out, and 118 could not make shots after that. Their shot was just too low. So to finish off the match, we saw both alliances get the triple climbs. Also pretty cool to see some double triples. That actually happened a couple times at the event, I believe. And this match was nearly perfect for the Red Alliance. I don't see anyone else in the world coming close to that. I mean, the 148 3310 combo was just spectacular, and it was awesome to watch. Now, at this point, things started to calm down a little bit. Match 2 is just as much of a domination as match 1. The number 1 alliance from Lone Star of Barbecue and Kryptonite rattled off a score of 236-92 against the Bluebonnet number 3 alliance. And then match 3 was a little interesting. The Everybot alliance beat Spectrum in the original 148, 179 points to 151. Now, this was important for 2 reasons. Number 1, the Everybot alliance became a threat to all alliances down the stretch of round robin. We talked about this earlier. Everyone on Lone Star had already seen it. The match that I believe Raheel went through kind of showed that the Everybots were a factor. Us over at Bluebonnet, we had no idea. So this was the first time we saw that, and we were like, this is a little scary. Number 2, this was the start of the original 148 plus Spectrum struggles down the playoff matches. Though every bots thrived when given a lot of balls to score, albeit the low goal. But when an alliance, once the balls start to flow and an alliance like OG 148 and Spectrum started to struggle, this was amplified even more. In match number 4, the domination of 3310 and 148 backup bot continued, with that alliance scoring another high score match of 245 points against the Lone Star number 1 seed of Barbecue and Kryptonite. Finally, match 5, 118, 6800 alliance finally figured out their problems and kicked it back into gear, winning their second match 173-149 against the number 3 Lone Star. At this point in the round robin, a few things made themselves clear. 3310 and 148 Blue Bot were going to run the field, and it was going to be incredibly difficult to stop them. Number 2, Barbecue and Kryptonite were going to have to battle it out with the Robonauts and Valor to try and secure that second place position. Number 3, mentioned it plenty of times before, Everybot Alliance was way more challenging to beat than everyone thought they originally were going to be. Having that third robot that can gobble up balls from anywhere on the field was super beneficial, especially since ball starvation was an extreme problem in a lot of these matches. And utilizing that third robot for ball starvation rather than defense was a legit strategy, and something, you guys are watching this and you're going to off-season events in the fall, so that's something for you guys to consider. OG 148 and Spectrum were struggling with their shots. This eventually would pick up, but wasn't going to be easy. And my final point, the third place alliance from both fields had a huge uphill battle to climb. The top 2 seeds from both fields just had too much firepower, and matching that was going to be incredibly difficult. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to cover all 15 round robin matches, but I'll cover a few notable matches. In match number 6, the Everybot Alliance won again against the number 3 seeded alliance in the round robin. This Everybot Alliance would win 3 of their total 5 matches, dropping their only 2 matches to the 3310-148 Alliance and to the 118-6800 Alliance. One of the matches they would win was against the number 1 Lone Star seed of Barbecue and Kryptonite, where the Everybot Alliance won 180-165, yet a surprisingly fun match to watch again. In match 11, OG 148 and Spectrum finally got things under control and won their first and only match of round robin, 233-44, which turned out to be the biggest spread of these round robin matches, a difference of 189 points. This was against the number 3 seed from Bluebonnet, who unfortunately lost every match of the round robin. Lastly, the most impactful match of round robin was match number 12, the number 1 Lone Star Alliance of Barbecue and Kryptonite against the number 2 Bluebonnet Alliance of Robonauts and Valor. The final score was 202-191 for the Lone Star Alliance, a delta of 11 points, which was the closest round robin match. This match was decided by climbs, where 6645 from the Bluebonnet Alliance unfortunately did not make the climb as their hooks slipped off the rung, while 6800 and 118 were climbing next to them. The result, Barbecue and Kryptonite would make it to the grand finals over Robonauts and Valor as long as the higher seeded teams won their round robin matches in matches 13, 14, and 15, which was exactly what happened. 33-10, 148, 58-66 lock in a grand finals appearance with an undefeated round robin performance, going 5-0. 27-14, 6-24, and 54-17 then received that second grand final slot with a 3-2 record. Now, the fun part about round robin matches is that the tiebreaker points matter a ton. 3 of the 6 round robin alliances ended with a record of 3-2. Both the 118, 6800, 6645 alliance and the Everybot 5892, 118 Everybot and 457 alliance got that 3-2 record as well. But the auto points determined who got that grand final slot. So number 1 alliance from the Bluebonnet and number 1 alliance from Lone Star found themselves into the grand finals of the Texas Cup. The best 2 of 3 matches would determine who took home that massive Texas Cup trophy. Everything is bigger in Texas. instead of recapping the match, we're actually going to break down match number 2 of the grand finals live. Match 1 ended up with 33-10, 148, and 58-66, winning 257 to 203. And match 2, well, let's watch. Tyler, go ahead and start up the match. So the first thing I want to note when we're looking at this is that 148 is running their steal auto. So they're stealing from the opposite trench, and 33-10 hits all of their auto shots as well, which is, I mean, a huge lead for the Red Alliance. At the end of end of auto, Tyler, go ahead and pause this for me. You can take a look at the Rendezvous Zone, the middle area underneath the big truss. There are 0 balls available for the Red Alliance. They've cleared that out completely. And there are 5 balls on the blue side of the field. So right away, if I'm Red Alliance, I'm kind of looking, okay, we need to start making trench runs, or we got to go steal those balls that are in the middle for the Rendezvous Zone. So,
and I can actually offer some insight into sort of this setup here, because I'm on team 5417. So after our second robot was knocked out, I hopped into the other pit and started helping out over there. And we got help to just quickly make an auton to place 5417 in that Rendezvous Zone and prevent 148's B-bot from coming in during teleop and collecting those balls and just continuing to keep the cycles up.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge because, looking at this field, there's not a whole lot of balls available for the Red Alliance. So Blue Alliance kind of shielding those balls is critically important in this next step. Now, one thing before we hit the play button that is just a fun little thing to watch. If you watch the 148 Blue robot, they accidentally hit a low goal shot, which I don't think they had ever hit a low goal shot prior to this. But once Tyler hits play, you can see there's just that one ball at the end of auto that just somehow trickles into that low goal, which is pretty cool to see. So as this starts to go, I wasn't watching. There go. Yeah, I think it already hit. So as this starts to go, notice that 58-66 starts to play defense. And the goal here from the Red Alliance is to start that positive feedback loop as quick as possible. What I mean by positive feedback is once the balls start going in through one zone, human players are forced to put the balls back in. And getting that positive feedback is super, super important because it makes the other team come all the way across the field to pick up balls. So, at about the 100-second mark is when that positive feedback cycle starts to spin for the Red Alliance, and that gives the opportunity for 148 to start picking up balls from the field. So go ahead and so they're positioned and ready to go. I believe they come back for one more trench cycle since the ball still hadn't started flowing yet. Now, another thing to note here, if you can pause this, Tyler, when I was coaching 6800 and when we were talking with 118, the game plan originally when we were playing these guys was to try and maximize our points when 148 was forced to go to the color wheel. With 118, it was easy. 118 was running trench, and then whenever they were done, they would just hit the color wheel and continue on, which left 6800 ourselves up to feed off the floor. Now, in this match, 3310 was traditionally running the trench, and now 148 has to come and get in their way pretty much to go spin the color wheel. At this point, go ahead and hit play. 3310 doesn't really know what to do because 148's blocking that lane off. So they're just kind of in the middle of the field, kind of waiting for 148 to go back into their own zone so that 3310 can continue running trench cycles. And so once they kind of clear out of that zone, 3310 is still sitting there, not really sure what to do. 148 is grabbing balls from the trench, runs down. Now 3310 and 148 can continue their normal planned cycles, where 148 just drains from the fender. We call that the fender shot, gets the positive feedback balls, and continues on their way. At this point, note 624 is the only blue team running cycles. So Barbecue, I believe, was broken at this point. And I think Barbecue was broken from their last round robin match. So Barbecue's attempting to play defense, and Kryptonite's the only one scoring balls. But they're super overwhelmed because 3310 and 148 are just sweeping the floor.
Barbecue's intake was down for the count at that point.
From the round robin match, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was it's a lot of matches. Yeah, they had played 12 matches plus 5 in semis, plus another 5 in round robin, plus these 2. So yeah, it takes a toll on these robots. Now, with 30 seconds left, go ahead and hit play, Tyler. 3310 starts to take care of the positive feedback balls. They just went down into that zone. They're picking up off the floor. at this point, there's no reason for them to run trench cycles. It's quicker for them to just grab as many balls as they can on the field, take a few shots. 1 at 48. Tried to do that as well, and then realized, no, let's just secure the hang. The game is too close for them to take that risk. So at this point, all 6 robots line up for the climb. Red is up, so as long as they get the climbs, they're good to go. They take their time, and the final 2 match of Texas Cup ended with a double-triple climb, which was very cool to see. So what a way to end Texas Cup. It was double-triple climb for the grand finals. Congrats to 33-10, 148, and 58-66 on winning the Texas Cup. Congrats to 27-14, 624, and 54-17 for their silver medals. And congrats to all the teams that competed. It was really nice seeing everybody out there, and especially since we haven't seen each other in a bit. So it was a great event. At this point, we do have about 5 minutes for some closing statements and conversation. So, let's start with you, Raheel. Go ahead and any just generic comments to finish things off.
No, it just made me really happy to see Infinite Recharge, get the proper playing it deserved, because it was such a fun game to watch. It was a fun game to analyze. It was a fun game to, beat robots up with. So I'm just glad it got to happen.
Yeah, and beating the robots up. I mean, in chat, Garrison, Derp Cookies, both. A lot of robots happened this last weekend. Robots were severely beat up by the end of the tournament. I think the count was, 22 matches, I believe, for these teams that went through to the finals. 22 matches in a span of 3 days is a lot, and I know now these teams get to go home and kind of relax a little bit and not have to worry about beating the robots up. Zach, what about you? Any other comments from you?
I think that the entire format of the tournament was great. I would love to see this round robin format used more often. It created just some great competition. An important note to the round robin is it allowed more teams to play each other in the playoff format. In a typical playoff at a regional or a division, alliances would get to see at most 3 other alliances, while some teams got to play against 8 different alliances if you counted between quarters, semis, the sudden death round, and the different round robin. So that's just, it's more playoff experience. It's getting to play against different teams, which enriches strategy, and I think the whole format was great. The sudden death matches in the divisions was just had an absolutely electric energy to them, and was something that you don't typically see in something like this. And I thought that was another great addition. The whole event was great. It was awesome to see robots back on the field. And while some of them got a little beat up, I think it was for the best.
Yeah.
Guys, let me ask you, do you think the round robin was too long, the right amount of matches, or it should be longer?
I think it was actually perfect. I kind of hope that this format stays for future Texas state championships, because I feel like it finally gives us, something that we can hold up to Michigan and say, look, our state championships are insane too.
Yeah, I also agree, because I competed in first in Michigan in high school, so I was able to see at least the rise of the octo finals, or whatever they call them, in the first in Michigan events. I also think this was the right amount of matches for that round robin event. But I do have a little bit of concerns regarding FMS and how just in general, how the tournament is set up and how teams can connect. I remember running back and forth with April, our FTA, trying to get our radio flashed before round robin, because we were on the opposite field right before those matches. And turns out my driver had it the whole time. I just wasn't aware of it. But I do know that it's just some complexity having to deal with in just a normal elimination rounds. There's more complications, I guess, with how the tournament's set up, with how FMS is set up. So I think something would need to be worked out with first in Texas, whoever's running these events, to deal with that a little bit earlier, or nail that down before the event actually happens. I think that concludes all of our time. So thank you for all the follows and subscriptions we received today. Don't forget you can subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime through Prime Gaming. We hope you enjoyed this episode of FRC Recap. If you want to stay connected with us, If you want to stay connected with what First Updates Now is doing, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok under @FirstUpdatesNow, and join our Discord through the link in the chat. On behalf of myself, Raheel, Zach, and our producer Tyler working behind the scenes, I would like to thank you for tuning in. See you next time on FRC Recap.
We would like to thank our friends at Stryker for supporting this video. Stryker is looking for current and future First alumni to join their internship program, and First mentors who are looking for a great career with a company who actually supports their First journey. Go to careers.stryker.com to learn more. You can also directly support Fun by joining Fun Nation. Click the join button, and just for a few bucks a month, you'll unlock special perks and directly support us so we can keep making great content. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date on our new videos. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. Watch our live shows at twitch.tv/firstupdatesnow, join our Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow, and check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.